before I jump there, I do want to get your perspective on the second critical choice, which for me was to commit to a two-way agreement. And that two-way agreement at the time was between me and my sister and her husband, who took me in. Now, what I learned or what I felt was the force of committing to a two-way agreement. And that for me, actions that started from a place of, I have to do these things, it really transformed to, I want to. And it was the first time in my life that I experienced joy in the ordinary because of that agreement and because of committing to it. I think we commit to two-way agreements all the time, informally or formally. I'd like your perspective on the idea of a two-way agreement, and if there is one that you would share where you would say, this agreement, by committing to it, really elevated my experience and my journey. And I have a feeling of one for you, but I'm not going to answer for you.
Okay. But I'm curious about it. Look, what I think of is how the problem that I've had showing up for a lot of two-way agreements.
Okay, keep going.
Life, and that's not having a hard time standing up for myself. And also coming to that agreement feeling that I'm unworthy of love. That's something I've dealt with since I was a kid. And unfortunately, that's been a big part of of the relationships I've been in, the romantic relationships. I'm a marriage, and where I've entered a relationship is we had a couples therapist who helped us get divorced, who was wonderful, and I'll never forget. She told me, like on our, she met with us together, and then she met with us both individually, and we came back, and the very first thing she said, just as I was sitting down, she said, "You know what your problem is?" And I'm, you feel undeserving of love, and you need to, and so you married somebody who didn't love you. And she said, "Look, you are an accommodator. You feel like you're not good enough, so you do all these actions and these things to try to accommodate, for what you feel is not worth it." And man, she told me this thing. She said, "You need to find somebody who loves you for breathing." And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know somebody would love you just for who you were, who I was, but I mean, it took me a minute to get my head around it, but she was like, yeah, just find somebody in this world who loves you for who you are and quit working so hard at it. And look, relationships, they take a lot of work, and I'm going to find somebody who works as hard as I am, as I do in a relationship. But at the same time, I want to show up in a two-way agreement with somebody who says, look, we got grace for each other. We're going to give each other, we're going to forgive each other, but we're both going to be working toward the same direction in this thing. Let's commit and have a covenant that we're going to be, that we're going to be both equally devoted to one another and give and take, but always try to turn toward each other whenever we can. And also speak up. We're going to both feel safe, create a safe place where we can speak up and open up, be vulnerable, and then because we want to know one another. And that's taken me a long time. I don't even know if I'm still there yet fully. I don't know. As far as a relation, God, this.
Well, can I?
Well, look, I have one in mind.
But I gotta just go into this conversation for a minute. So. A few minutes ago when we were talking about making a first choice, and it was about follow your fear, and that I think you used, I'm going to paraphrase, these will be my words, but that's a choice that you have to continuously make. And sometimes you choose to do it, and sometimes you choose not to do it.
Yes.
So I've got to make the parallel here because it's Tim and Trish. So like the fifth choice I made, which we will dive into, is to embrace my boundless capacity to give love and to receive love, which is a choice. And what people, I think, wrongly assume is that once I made that choice, I never had to make it again. But in fact, it is an active, almost daily choice to embrace all the love for myself, Trish, and to give all the love to someone else. Because I still hold on to fear. And fear of rejection, fear of not being worthy, fear of being too much, fear of all those things. And I hear you say that, with struggling with, feeling like worthy of being loved. And I'm blown away by that, because most often I feel like I'm the only one. And it's not true.
Oh, right. No, you're right. It's not. I think so many of us feel that way. And we approach the world with mask, to hide that. Sometimes it comes off as arrogance with some people.
Yes.
Sometimes that's why I always connect. When I walk into a room of people, it's the wallflowers who I'm drawn to. And it's the people who don't seem to engage, who are kind of quiet, who need to be pulled in, or need to be noticed and need to feel like they're seen. I think they need that the most. And so feeling the same way, knowing what that feels like, that's kind of where I start to connect with people. And and I'm actually kind of, but for the person who takes up a lot of space and seems overly confident and maybe even a little pretentious, that's the person I avoid. The gregarious person, because I just tend to avoid that person. And so I guess, I don't know, getting back to a two-way agreement, it would be hard for me to make a two-way agreement with somebody like that, where I'd be a lot more comfortable doing that with someone who I feel is more like me.
Yeah.
Is probably struggling with something.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Choose and Become interview series. To check out more episodes, go to www.trishkendall.com/podcast, or go to any of your favorite podcast channels, including YouTube, under Trish Kendall Speaks, and you'll find this interview and more. Choose and become.